City Clerk, will you please take roll?
Alder Ford? Here. Alder Thomas?
Here.
Alder Groupie?
Here.
Alder Wood?
Here.
Council President Kitzler?
Here.
Alder Moore and Mayor O'Connor are excused.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of September 3rd, 2019? Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any changes, corrections, additions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. No appearances. I don't see anything. No public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. All right. We'll move on to action items. Unfinished business. 1A, consideration of resolution 19-9-2370, approving a bid for the purchase and installation of library carpet. Library Director Claringbull, I don't know if you have anything to add from last time.
We'll need a motion.
Oh, is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, sorry. Director Claringbull.
Yes, hello. I just want to add two things. One, I was asked about recycling of the carpet materials. I did talk to Halverson. They say that they do have recycling capabilities. They won't know to what extent they can recycle until they actually pull up the carpet and see the condition of it, but they do recycle carpet. Second, regarding, there was some discussion about the movers for this project, and the movers did come back with an official bid cost. And with that official bid cost, it looks like we would be over by a little over $500. That is something I can speak to my board about, and we could pay that difference with the library fund balance if needed.
Are there additional questions or comments for Director Claringbull? All right, seeing none, all those in, we're going to do a roll call vote. City Clerk, please take.
Alder Wood?
Aye.
Alder Ford?
Aye.
Alder Thomas?
Aye.
Alder Groupie?
Aye.
All right. You have some new carpet coming your way.
Thank you.
Unfinished business 1B, consideration of resolution 19-9-2371, approving a park shelter lease agreement between the City of Monona and Yahara RFP Phase 1 LLC. City Administrator.
We need to take a motion.
Oh, sorry. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll get a hang of it.
Thank you. On page 27 of your packet is an additional memo that I added that categorized Alder Kitzler's questions from the last meeting, and then some responses from City Attorney Clark Sugar, who works with City Attorney Bill Cole at Axley. He provided a couple of the responses to questions 2 and 3 about some of the technical language related to the lease. Question 1, that answer comes from staff. We had contacted our municipal property insurance company to ask the question about would the requirement for $2 million liability coverage increase the city's operating expense for insurance. That $2 million coverage clause in and of itself would not increase what we pay for insurance. The fact that we were adding 2 properties, the park and then the shelter space itself under our insurance policy, that would cause a nominal increase in our insurance coverage to the tune maybe about $1,000 or $2. We won't know that exact dollar amount until January of next year, but that is our understanding from the insurance company. And I've asked City Attorney Cole to be here to answer any other questions that you might have about the lease agreement.
Are there any questions about the lease agreement? Alder Wood?
So, 4.08 on transfer of premises. At the end, it says that basically the landlord's obligations shall become the responsibility of the new owner. But then it goes on to say, if the new owner is expressly agrees in writing to assume landlord's obligations. And so Bill, could you address how that
Sure.
how that would work?
Sure, that's correct. So the new owner accepting the obligations is a condition to the transfer. So if the new owner were to refuse, then the obligations would remain with the old owner. The point of the clause is obviously when an owner sells a rental property, they no longer want to be subject to the obligations of the lease. They want to be able to assign those to the new owner, and as a condition of the sale, it's required that the new owner accept that assignment. This language says if that occurs, then we as the tenant agree the old owner is no longer liable on anything, but it is conditioned upon the new owner accepting the assignment. So for instance, if for some odd reason the sale did go through without an assignment, the city would still have its lease with the old owner, and those conditions would remain. We'd have a legal contract with the old owner. It would put the old owner in a very difficult spot since they didn't have control of the property anymore. So that's why in any sale, the old owner is going to require the new owner to accept the assignment and the obligations. It is very standard language. I have honestly never seen a lease that didn't have such language in it.
Okay. That answers my question.
One question I had kind of in that same vein is, so usually tenants aren't made aware of a sale of a property, I don't believe, until afterwards or until transfer of ownership. In this case, how would the city know? I guess how would we ensure, how would we know that that transfer actually, the transfer of this lease occurred properly?
Right. There are, as in this lease and with most commercial leases, the tenant has no right to prior notice of a sale. Oftentimes that's very intentional. If a landlord is marketing property, they don't want the public to know that they're marketing it, that sort of thing. So normally what happens is it'll happen in one of two ways. Either the buyer will require that they be able to contact the tenants and do some due diligence, and the city would be contacted basically by the new buyer to say, are there any issues, that sort of thing. We would find out that way. If that didn't happen, then we would receive a notice upon the closing, a written notice basically saying the lease has been, the property has been sold to XYZ Corporation effective this date. From this point forward, any rental payment should be made in care of these people. And that's probably the normal routine in these type of deals, and that's what I would expect would happen here.
Gotcha. Any additional questions, comments? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, ayes have it. Moving on to new business, 2A, consideration of resolution 19-9-2372, approval to apply for a Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Urban Forestry Grant. City Administrator.
Thank you. This resolution just authorizes staff to move forward with the process for applying for the DNR's Urban Forestry Grant. The purpose that we would want with this grant is to assist the city with removal and new plantings, specifically of ash trees on city property. Within the DNR's grant program, there's a maximum grant amount of $25,000, and then there's an additional requirement of a 50% match. So if we applied for up to $25,000, we'd have to match that with another $25,000. And as we just talked about in the capital discussion a moment before, we do have money that we've allocated in capital for tree removals and replacements. We don't know the exact dollar amount that we're going to apply for yet, but we can give you an update once we get a little bit closer to submitting that application. That'll take any questions you might have.
Are there any questions for the City Administrator? Alderwood.
Do we have any idea? I'm guessing that there's a lot of other communities. Well, I know there's a lot of other communities going through the same thing we are, and if they're how competitive the grant process will be this time.
It is a very competitive grant program. I actually, in my previous position in New Glarus, applied for it. I think it was last year or the previous fiscal year for pretty much the same thing for MO dashboard assistance, and we did not receive that grant. Typically, they fund projects that are less operational and things that are more long forward-thinking planning type of document. So this, I would classify this as a shot in the dark. We'll take the chance on applying for this and see what happens, but I don't know that we are by any measure guaranteed receiving any grant funding.
Yeah.
Alder
The city of Whitewater received this grant last year. They've got some documentation, so if you're interested, check out their website. Their project is funded.
An ash borer removal type
I
replacement.
don't think they strictly had ash borer removal.
Right.
It was to supplement their carbon forestry.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten the grant before, like for work in Woodland Park, especially in the early years of all that work. So, yeah, anyway, okay.
Additional questions, comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Item 2B, consideration of ordinance 9-19-720, requiring a three-way stop controlled intersection at Frostwoods Road and Bridge Road. Public Works Director.
Thank you.
Stephanie.
This appears on the agenda tonight at the recommendation of the Public Works Committee. Monona resident Curtis Jones appeared in front of the committee at the August meeting requesting this stop sign. The committee discussed it at that meeting and again at the September meeting. The committee did vote 4-3 recommending approval of the stop sign. So we're here tonight presenting it to you. There was some comments for and against it. Mainly the comments for that it's not a normal signed intersection. It's the south intersection of Bridge Road and Frostwoods. It's a three approach intersection, and typically you either want one of the approaches marked with a stop sign or all three. Right now there are two approaches that are marked, and the southbound approach is free flowing through the intersection. Some of the arguments, I guess, for installing the stop sign is that there are at times difficulty seeing traffic around the curve or through the curve. There's at times not knowing what the southbound traffic is going to do, whether they're going to take a left onto Frostwoods or continue straight, so traffic at the stop sign remains until the traffic comes through. Oftentimes they don't use a blinker. There were some comments against it, feeling it's not needed, not understanding the rationale for adding a new stop sign. City engineer Josh Straka was at the meeting as well, and he did indicate that intersection should either be a three-way stop or a one-way stop. It's not signed according to the manual right now. So with that, turn it over to you.
Any questions or other grouping?
I just have a comment. This was something that I heard a lot of just in the winter of 2018, and I think has been a concern of people in that area for a couple of years now. So I appreciate your attention to it and for bringing it to the committee level and having that discussion based on those resident concerns.
Thanks. Alder Core.
I would just reiterate that there was a pretty even split within Public Works as for and against this stop sign, although it did pass. And I thought it was telling that the engineer that was in the meeting for another purpose stated that really there should be a free-flowing intersection along Bridge, or it should just be a three-way stop. So this was actually the third option of how you would assign that intersection.
I just had a quick question. Is that property owner that's right there with does that driveway entrance and exit make any difference to having that stop sign there?
I don't think it will be impacted a great deal because there is two driveways to that property. You're talking 500?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
one drive.
From the aerial, it looks like there's.
Yeah,
one
there's-
driveway on,
there's-
there's one driveway on Bridge.
And one on Frostwoods.
One on
It looks
Frostwoods
like one on
too.
Frostwoods
Yeah.
as well.
He's got kind of a curved,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Looks like 411 has one too.
Anyway, yeah, I just didn't know if
Right.
that property owner is notified that this is happening as well, or if that even needs to
We can
happen.
reach out if that's a desire of council. We can do that.
I don't know if it's necessary.
Do we require housing?
No.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right. Thank you. We'll move on to new business 2C, consideration of ordinance 9-19-721, amending section 152-1, A, paren 1, of the fees, fines, and penalties schedule regarding ambulance transport fees. Chief Sullivan.
Good evening. I'm coming to request a increase in ambulance fees. This was brought forth to public safety as part of the 2020 operating budget, and it was moved forward from public safety for the 2020 operating budget. We started to discuss it a little bit at public safety, and because it wasn't on the agenda, we didn't move forward, and no motion was made, no action was made on it. So after talking with the administrator and Attorney Cole, they had said I can bring it forward as a staff member. So I'm bringing it forward under that on the assumption that public safety has passed it starting January 1st, and then it'll go to council for, if we don't want to move it forward, to start as soon as the council passes it in 2 readings. It will start January 1st if the council passes it at that point.
Can you talk a little bit about where our rates are in comparison to other rates in Dayton?
Yep. So I was gonna, so currently we're going from $625 for a resident fee to $1,000, and from $1,000 to $1,400 for a non-resident fee. In some of the supporting documents, you can see what the other municipalities around our area are charging currently, and we're at $625. Most of them are more in the $1,200 to $1,300 range. So we're looking at increasing that to $1,000. The
Page 60 of your
non-resident
packet.
fees.
60.
Yep, page 60. Non-resident fees go up from $1,000 to $1,400, and there too you can see we're still right in the median for our non-resident fees. On page 61 is a email correspondence between myself and the EMS medical billing company that we utilize. He put forth kind of some of the rationale and understanding for Medicare, Medicaid. This doesn't matter what we charge. This federal government only allows us to charge a certain amount, which is $432, of which Medicare pays 80%, then the resident is required to pay the other 20%. Everything above and beyond that is null and void. We can't charge more than that. So anybody who's on Medicare or Medicaid. So moving this forward, we're coming more in line with what our neighboring communities are charging. It will increase our revenues, of which we are a little bit short on our paid on premise. This will help with the paid on premise fees for this year. We're currently a little bit trending out. We're going to be a little bit shy in our revenues. If it continues to trend out the way it is, this will help with that also. It's about, for 2020, it'll be about $75,000. So it's about $6,700 per month. So it's going to bring in $13,000 to $15,000 this year into the revenue of this year's budget, if it goes through for November and December.
Questions for the chief? Alderman
I
Thomas.
just want to say that the committee would have, had it been on the agenda, the committee would have proposed that we do it immediately and don't wait till next year's budget, but wasn't on the agenda. It was on as part of the budget, so we could not make a motion to make it effective this year.
Okay.
So, but they would be very much in favor, and I think it makes sense because it'll help us balance our budget. And we are leaving money sit on the table, as they say.
Additional questions for the chief? Alderwood?
I believe you said at finance that the on-scene care and non-transport, no transport, that insurance generally won't cover those?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So we have not increased that at all.
Well, yeah, the proposal would increase it from 175 to 250 and 125 to 200.
No, it shouldn't.
Mhm.
In your chart.
Oh, in page 60, that was as part of it. That just kind of gave you an idea of what it was.
Okay.
What that was put together by one of my personnel,
Okay.
and it
That's not-
showed us, okay, what we could do, what the recommendation would be. We are strictly just going by
yeah.
the two, transport fees.
And I noticed in Madison Fire that they don't have a charge, or it's blank, so I don't know if they don't charge or we just don't know.
Madison does a straight across the board. They don't bill for equipment. They don't do itemized billing. So they bill straight across the board, I believe $1,000. They bill $1,000, resident and non-resident.
For, even if they
For
come and
transports.
don't transport.
I don't know what they do for non-transports.
Okay. I mean, on the chart, it's blank, so I don't know if that meant that you just couldn't get the info.
It's hard to get, so they don't charge. Okay.
And then the other, just comment or invite your response to anybody else. It's that we have and we'll continue to have, under this proposal, a bigger gap between what we charge residents and non-residents, and it's noticed some of the other departments don't have any difference in those charges.
Other Thomas?
You know, can
Go-
I-
go right ahead.
well, I cannot speak for your thinking, but I can tell you the thinking over the years has been that Monona residents pay for EMS services and emergency services through their taxes, and they deserve a break for that. And that's why there is the differential.
That would be my exact answer.
That was kind of a
You're so
softball.
smart. I mean, historically, we've done that, and it started out because when we had volunteers, they were very proud of the fact that they were volunteering their services and they didn't want money, and we charged residents very little for that. And as the EMTs became paramedics and became more sophisticated and more skilled, then the service and the cost went up because we were paying our people to do that, and so, but still there was the differential because we thought the people who paid for it were part of their taxes. That was one of their benefits of living here.
Additional questions, comments? Other quorum?
I'm just curious, if it doesn't really impact our discussion here, but how often do we have, I guess, patients with the inability to pay?
We have a call going on right now, so the pager's going on, sorry. I probably get maybe 6 to 8 hardship waivers, and we have that ability. They could fill out the paperwork, and then as the paperwork comes in, I'll talk with finance director and determine do they meet the threshold for the waiver.
6 to 8 for the year, Chief Sullivan?
I believe so. I'm
Okay.
not,
Approximately.
I'd have to go. Yeah, I leave that to Mark. We also follow a lot of times. By the time we get it, the hospital has been asked for that waiver also. If they give us the hospital's approval for the waiver, we just pretty much automatically give the waiver because the hospital's done the legwork on it.
Other comments?
Yeah, just that in all of my years, and there's been a few of them, our services have been very compassionate and very caring about the people that they transport. And they are particularly sensitive to people who live here and taking good, I mean, it's like their personal responsibility that they feel this. And they're very concerned about their ability to pay. And they've always been very caring, compassionate to the people of this community.
Additional questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to new business. Item 2D, consideration of resolution 19-9-2373, supporting Dane County application to change the name of Squaw Bay, presented by Alders Core, Groupie, and more. I don't know.
I can.
Alder Core, you want to start it? Or?
So you've got a revised version. One of the whereases fell off on the version that was emailed last week. So if you note the third whereas has been dropped off on the original version.
And it's different than in the, yeah.
Correct. So this came about as part of a discussion that Alders Groupie and Moore and I had with Supervisor Buckingham at the county level. The county is actually putting forth a application to the Wisconsin, I get the name wrong, so bear with me. It's the State of Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Geographic Names Council, which is the state level entity that approves changes to names of natural features. And then if that application is approved, it goes on to the federal level for review. A little background, this actually came to the council in 2005, I believe, Overwood.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, through much discussion and public comment, it was tabled and not taken up again, is what I understand. The concern about the name, the word that I don't even like to say myself, squaw, has a history of use as a derogatory slur and a tool of colonization that devalues women and girls and creates a power dynamic that enables sexual violence against women in all backgrounds. First Nations women are 2.5 times more likely to be victims of sexual violence than non-Native women, and 86% of their attackers are non-Native men. And so it's the thought that maintaining this name contributes to that power dynamic, and I just don't feel that in this day and age it's appropriate anymore. I personally don't use the term when I'm paddling with my children on the lake. They don't know that it's named Squaw Bay. So that's why I'm asking that this body support the application of the county.
I guess I would just add too that we tried to be very thoughtful and diplomatic in the way that we handled this issue. Alder Moore in particular was in talks with various members of the Ho-Chunk Nation and their seniority, and we had talked about proposing different names or what would be appropriate as far as what the county would propose as far as renaming the bay. And ultimately, it was a suggestion that they had proposed back in 2005 that they continued to feel comfortable with and felt was representative of their history and culture. And so I agree with Alder Coor's comments. I'm appreciative of her and Alder Moore and Supervisor Buckingham's efforts in this. I do think it's well past time that we move forward with this with respect to the Ho-Chunk, and I'm very enthusiastically in support of the county's application.
Sorry, I did mean to mention, as a historic background, the name came about according to the Dane County Place Names book. It was named for Sarah Wood, who was believed to be Ho-Chunk, and she was married to a man in the East, Abraham Wood, thank you. from the east, and it is likely that the name was given to honor her. But I would say that this, in this day and age, the name has changed meaning and is no longer in honor of a woman of that stature.
Other Thomas?
I support it because Ho-Chunk have suggested another name, but I come from a different direction because if there are differing points of view about the meaning of the word squaw and where it came from. But there are people, and I mean, there is an Abenaki anthropologist who suggests that originally squaw, that there was nothing derogative about it, and that the name was hijacked by the white hunters and settlers, and she resented the fact that the Indian word was hijacked to mean something that it was never meant to mean. And I tend to side with her, but in this case, because Ho-Chunk has suggested something different and has asked for the name, I support the name that, I mean, I like the name that they've suggested, and I think it's good, but I'm not, you know, I look at what the Native American culture says, and when I worked with the 11 tribes in this state, not tribes, but tribal members, because some of them belong to the Ojibwe tribe, but and I went there and I ate squaw bread, and it was prepared by the Indians, and it was not considered derogatory by them at the time. So I think there are differing interpretations of the word, but I respect what the Ho-Chunks want done and the efforts made to change the name.
Additional comments?
Just,
Alder?
yeah, I would like to thank Alders Moore, Groupie and Kerr for bringing this up, and Supervisor Buckingham for bringing it up at the county. We did try to change the name in 2005. I think the approach you've taken is better. I think at that time we didn't have a suggested name to replace it. My understanding is that the word squaw originally was an Algonquin word and was imported by one of the other tribes, used to describe Winnebago or Ho-Chunk women. So I suspect by the next meeting we may hear from community members who have a different viewpoint, but we'll see. That was 14 years ago, so things have changed.
Alder?
I will note that at the meeting 14 years ago, 8 people spoke against, and there were 2 for informational purposes only, and I believe there were 4 that spoke for.
I just want to make one final comment. So regarding the different interpretations or derivations of the word, I think a problem with cultural appropriation today is that often we tie images and names together in a way that even if we were to take away, you know, what we now have as a modern interpretation of the word squaw from that word, it's so inextricably tied to the negative connotations of the word that I think it just complicates it. It's like trying to maintain a mascot by, you know, that's called a warrior by taking away the brand or the logo, but the name still has the implication of what the original mascot or logo was. So I think that those are important points to be made, but I also think, as Alder Thomas mentioned, this is a name suggested by Ho-Chunk as a suitable replacement and maybe more reflective of their own history and culture as fur trappers. And just, you know, regardless of how we may have seen it at one time, I think in modern history, it's so inextricably linked to these negative connotations that it's hard to try to maintain that, I think, in this day and age.
And I just, so it would be renamed Muskrat Bay, not Weechawek?
It would be.
Or would it be Weechawek Bay?
It's Weechawek Bay.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
I will say that in the change from honoring Sarah Wood to the new name, it is my understanding that the Ho-Chunk don't name places for individual people, and so this would be more fitting with their tradition.
Alderwood?
Guess a question or a comment that there is a road in Monona called Squaw Circle. I don't know if there's been any thought given to that name around.
Yes, the intent is if this does go forward and is passed, it would make sense for us to address that, which I believe would be originated in Public Works.
Okay, thank you.
Does that mean we're going to change Winnequa as well?
We had that discussion, and at this point, I think we're taking baby steps, and so I think that if that's something that this body chooses to bring up at a later date, but I think this was our first step, and because we had cooperation from the county, and I will mention that the City of Madison is also supportive and is going to work through a resolution. They're their common council as well. This made the most sense as something to tackle.
Any additional questions or comments? All right, thank you very much. All right, we're moving on to reports of committees, commissions, boards, etc. We'll start with Alder Groupie.
No report.
All right. Alderwood?
Just our last, was the last Parks Board meeting that we did the tour, the one before?
One before.
Well, that was a good tour. I don't know if anybody mentioned that or previous.
No, I don't think so.
Anyway.
Everyone was invited, but I don't think we mentioned it.
Right. If you haven't been to the overlook at Cold Springs, it's worth stopping there. It's really turned out really great. That's it.
And that was done all in-house, which was really nice.
Yeah.
By Public Works and everything else.
Alder gets
Oh.
President, Council President gets a take back, so can I record?
Sure,
too late?
I'll circle back.
So all of you probably received this, but Officer Ryder, our Community Resource Officer, is leaving the force, and this Wednesday between 11 and 1 is sort of a potluck lunch for staff and other visitors who may want to come and share stories and sort of bid him farewell as he goes on to Farming Fire Department.
Correct.
So.
Yeah, let's make it if you can. Alder Core? Alder
No
Thomas?
report.
City Clerk?
No report.
City Attorney?
I do have something. I don't know if you recall, last time I think I was here in front of this body, I had mentioned that there was a lawsuit filed regarding signs placed in the city right-of-way that the code enforcement officer had removed, and the owner of the sign filed suit believing that those were wrongly done. The city did defend it. That hearing was a few weeks ago. It was in small claims court. The court commissioner did rule in the city's favor, finding that it was within the right-of-way, so the city was perfectly within its rights to remove those signs. That's all I have.
Thanks for the update. City Administrator?
Just real briefly, I know the council members are aware of this, but the Parks Board has recommended Grand Crossing as the name for the new city park at the riverfront development. And there's a 30-day public comment period. And so once that comment period has been complete, we'll bring that back to the full council for their consideration in October.
Awesome. And to add on to that, I would encourage you all, if you have not been to the new park, Grand Crossing, or unnamed right now, to be named, check it out. It actually looks like a park with grass and a lot of amenities and different seating arrangements and kind of fun things to do there. So the only thing I have to add is Tourism Commission is meeting on October 8th to consider grant awards. So if you have an organization or if even your city committee has any reason to apply, please inquire with city administrator and he can give you the application for that.
Deadline is October 1st.
And the deadline, yep, is October 1st for those. The only thing else I'll add is thanks for a good meeting, and I appreciate the leniency. There's no appointments, and is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, city council meeting is adjourned.